This man is Japanese General Shiro Ishii. For 7 years, he headed a vast secret organization known as Unit 731. Unit 731 manufactured and developed deadly bacteria for use in war. They made anthrax, typhoid, and plague. To study and perfect the killing capacity of these biological weapons, General Ishii experimented on more than 3,000 human beings, including Allied prisoners of war. Yet, unlike his Nazi counterparts, such as Dr. Mengele, Ishii did not have to scuttle away into the depths of a South American jungle at the war's end. Instead, his crimes went unpunished, and he lived out his days quite peacefully here in Japan. Why was that? Why were Ishii and other members of his team permitted to get away with murder? The answer reveals the full horror of the work of Unit 731 and implicates the Japanese and Allied governments at the highest levels.
They were, the bodies were put up on autopsy tables, and then they would cut them open and so forth and get their organs, or parts of organs, whatever they wanted, and they put them in the containers and were marked with the same number as was on the POW tag.
What particular organs were they concentrating on?
They looked like deep in the stomach, so it was part of the small intestine, and looked like pancreas and lung and brain.
And brain as well.
Brain as well.
Frank James is one of a group of American prisoners who believe the Japanese experimented upon them during the last war. The experiments began in a prisoner of war camp in Manchuria in 1942. The Japanese scientists used chemical sprays, injections, blood samples, and rectal smears.
And they come through and they had everybody bent over and they had little glass rods. And they got one of them shoved up their rear end, you know. And the Japs had so much fun doing it. I remember that.
I was pretty sick, and I wouldn't go to the hospital because nobody that went in ever came out. I've told people, when they said, well, Charlie, you didn't die, why so many others? I said, well, maybe I got placebos and they got the shots.
I was lying in my bunk in the barracks, and this Japanese, I thought he was a guard. He came in and he had a feather, and he run that feather up and down under my nostrils. And then I discovered that this was one of the methods that they used to get prisoners to ingest bacteria. From the time I've come back, I've suffered with fevers. And then I went to doctor after doctor, went to specialists, and they can't determine what it is.
What did you think the purpose of all this was, Frank?
I thought they were researching us, you know.
They measured our skulls, our height. That's when they took our blood test also.
Why did you think at the time they were measuring you and taking blood tests?
I have no idea. They done many strange things that we never could understand.
But if these Americans were experimented upon, none of the scientists responsible was ever prosecuted for war crimes. A secret deal at the end of the war, involving General Douglas MacArthur, prevented the Japanese being brought to justice. The deal was struck by this man, a former US intelligence officer, Colonel Murray Sanders. This document, seen here for the first time, lies at the heart of the deal. Germ warfare secrets in return for immunity from prosecution for Ishii and his men. Today, what does Sanders think of the deal?
I think it was a mistake. But my only excuse is that we never would have obtained the data that we got if we hadn't done something like that.
Ishii's interest in gas and germ warfare grew from decisions taken at a meeting of the League of Nations in Switzerland in 1925. 29 nations signed a protocol prohibiting the first use of bacteriological methods of warfare. 6 nations failed to ratify the agreement, among them Japan. And from this debate, in the mind of Shiro Ishii, was born an idea that colleagues who worked with him later watched grow into an obsession.
I had the impression that Commander Ishii saw this as a means whereby Japan could conquer the world. At that time, of course, the atomic bomb had not been invented, and the matter of whether the world could be conquered by biological warfare was a topic of much debate.
General Ishii's logic was simple. If the rest of the world had banned gas and germ warfare, Japan should have that capability. Besides being a soldier, Ishii was a brilliant bacteriologist. In the 1930s, he set up a small laboratory here at the Army Medical College in Tokyo. There was little support for his ideas on germ warfare, but he was asked to design a pump to purify water. The work quickly had a practical value, as Japan's military ambitions became evident. In 1931, Japan overran Manchuria. Their armies threatened both Russia and China. In 1935, a single incident played into Ishii's hands. Cholera ravaged the Japanese troops. The army blamed a group of spies, caught carrying glass bottles and ampoules containing the germs of dysentery, cholera, and anthrax. With these germs, said the Japanese, the spies had poisoned the wells of drinking water. "2,000 horses and 6,000 men died. The Kwantung Army generals decided they needed protection from germ warfare. Their troops must never again be so vulnerable. Within a matter of months, Ishii was given huge funds to build the world's first major germ warfare installation. It would be in Manchuria at a village called Pingfan, about 40 miles south of Harbin. It would shelter under the innocuous title of the Anti-Epidemic Water Supply Unit, or Unit 731. By 1939, Pingfan was a sprawling cluster of laboratories and living quarters, a garrison of 3,000 scientists, technicians, and soldiers. Top civilian scientists were secretly drafted there to join the career army doctors. Here, the bacteria of typhus and tetanus, anthrax and smallpox, salmonella and glanders were nurtured and grown in huge vats. Ishii's unit could produce up to 8 tons of bacteria a month, but crucially, he needed to draw a veil of secrecy around his work. So he recruited many of the men and women who ran Pingfan from this village, Kamo, near Tokyo. Kamo was Ishii's family home. He was the major local landowner, and in taking his villagers with him to Pingfan, he ensured both loyalty and secrecy. Around 500 of them went. They've never spoken to outsiders about it to this day. Ishii also recruited his 2 brothers. Mitsuo he put in charge of the animals to be bred for experiments. Takeo controlled what Ishii described as his secret of secrets,